A majority of Americans may have some money invested in the stock market, usually through employer pension plans or 401ks, but it's very little indeed. 43% of Americans, 43% Americans, yes, 40% of Americans have less than $10,000 in retirement savings, and 36% contribute nothing to retirement savings at all, thanks to two stock market collapses in less than a decade. Most Americans will be more dependent on Social Security and retirement than ever. So much for the nation capitalist and the investor today. I'm going to break from reading this just for a second. When that last stock market crashed, you know what happened? We took money from people who have been saving it up for 20 or 30 years, 40 years. Their cumulative wealth in the stock market went to zero. The perfect example is General Motors stock. What did it go to zero? And then they didn't even, I think, honor the common stock people. I don't know how that preferred stock or common stock worked. But the bottom line is that stock is now back up to where it was. But the people that had wealth are different than the people who have wealth in it now. The people that have the wealth that the people who lost had it by buying stock for $1 a share. And the only people that could afford to do it were people that still had money left. I'm continuing. At least the credentials touted by the center left and the stocks and bonds touted by the center right could be described with some plausibility as income-generating assets. During the bubble years, houses also began to be seen as income-producing assets, as well as symbols of membership in the suburban upper middle class. For a generation, most Americans have been told by the left, the right, and the center that they would be failures if they ended their communications with high school. Worked hard, saved cash for emergencies, and bought modest homes they could afford. They've been told to succeed in life, they need to ape their lifestyles of the upper middle class that provides most of Americans politicians, pundits, and scholars. And that's exactly what I've been saying, folks. The result has been an experiment in social engineering that has gone horribly wrong. The creation of a full mass upper middle class, millions of Americans who by objective standards belong to the working class or lower middle class, have persuaded themselves that they are part of the professional investor elite because they have worthless degrees from diploma mills, negligible amounts invested in stocks, and suburban trophy houses they can't afford. For the college graduates at Starbucks working to pay off student loans for degrees they'll never use, as for the millions of Americans who are now underwater, owing more than their mortgages and their houses are worth, the American dream is but a nightmare. The American dream is but a nightmare. The American dream is but a nightmare. But many have profited from the peddling of the dream of the mass upper middle class. The claim that everybody should go to college served the interest of the education industrial complex from K-12 to the universities, and now serves as an important constituency of the Democratic Party. Along with Wall Street investment banks, universities provided Barack Obama with his largest campaign donations. And the claim that everybody needs to pour money back into the stock market to be managed by banks and brokers who fleece their clients serve the interests of the financial industrial complex that's replaced real economy businesses as the dominant force in the Republican Party. Both the educators and the brokers have successfully lobbied Congress. Both the educators and the brokers have successfully lobbied Congress to subsidize their bloated industries, swelling them even further by means of tax breaks for student loans and personal retirement savings. The big losers have been the millions of working Americans whom many Democrats and Republicans alike have persuaded against their interests to indulge their champagne tastes on beer budgets. The alternative to mass upper middle class fantasy peddled by Republicans and Democrats is a return to the older New Deal liberal approach, based on high wages and adequate social insurance. Working Americans should not need to go into debt to obtain college diplomas in order to share more of the gains of the national economic growth in the form of higher wages, and there would be less pressure on the working Americans to gamble with their money in the stock market if Social Security, like public pensions in the rest of the world, replaced a higher percentage of pre-retirement incomes than the 30 or 40% it replaces today. An American with a college-educated professional majority was always a fantasy. So was America with a majority of affluent